Well, good day, everyone. I'm not going to say good afternoon, even though that's where we are in Ontario, because I not everyone may be in the afternoon. So, good day, everyone, and welcome to the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum's virtual session here on Common Threads, Contrasting Cloths, Susan Clark and Judi Miller. I'm very honored and ecstatic to showcase this exhibition at the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum. I want to start by giving a proper acknowledgement of the land that the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum is located on. It is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, and we're honored to be working with them on truth and reconciliation within our community through engagement, discussion, and meaningful work with our elders. I would like to also move into acknowledging and welcoming everyone and to introduce our guest curator, who I'm honored to work with for this is the second engagement of an exhibition that we've done with Miranda Bouchard. Miranda's an artist, curator, arts manager, and consultant with 20 years of learning and experience in nonprofit arts, culture, and heritage sector. Her roots and residence are in Algoma, from her focus on process and craft-based practices, intergenerational sharing, and projects unfolding in rural places where such practices are prevalent. She draws to stories, traditions, and modes of making that survive and retain their salience despite the passage of time. I am so thrilled to have Miranda here and to guest curate this show of these celebrated award-winning artists and to honor these artists, current and past. Over to you, Miranda, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for sharing part of your Saturday with us. I know that this is a busy time of the year. As I open the talk and introduce both the artists and our plan for the day, I'm going to actually cycle through some installation images selected of the Common Threads exhibition. Please let me know at any time if you're experiencing any kind of sound or visual lags. I am joining from a rural internet connection, so your patience with any glitches is very appreciated. As Michael said, my name is Miranda Bouchard. I'm joining you today from very close to where I live on Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory in Northern Ontario. This is the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe of Bawating at Ketagonsibee and Batchewana First Nation, at Thessalon First Nation, and at Miswazoging. This is a place where the Métis have lived for generations, and that's now home to folks of diverse Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island. I'm zooming in from small town Thessalon in the office of Thinking Rock Community Arts, which is an artful social change organization where I currently work as the artistic director. But as Michael mentioned, I also work as an independent curator and have recently had the wonderful chance to work with the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum as a guest curator. Michael and the MVTM approached me back in, I think it was 2022, about taking on a special project, working closely with the recipients, female textile artists, of a special award generously supported by a visionary donor and administered in 2020 by the MVTM. I was thrilled by the invitation and am very pleased to be sitting here with all of you today to tell you a bit about what the process of developing the special exhibition has been like, and also what it has meant to be involved with the wonderful artists that I'm excited to introduce you to very shortly. The exhibition's title, Common Threads, Contrasting Cloths, is inspired by both the similarities and differences in approaches taken to material and thematic concerns reflected in the works of participating artists, Judi Miller, who's joining from Canada, Ontario, and also the late Sue Clark, who was based in Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Throughout this project, I've had the privilege of working closely with Judi, as well as Jim Baker, an artist in his own right, and the life and adventure partner of Sue Clark. When I say that I have worked closely with them, I don't mean in close geographic proximity, although there are times I know that we all wish that we could visit each other. Throughout the development of the show, as I have worked in rural Algoma, I have had Zoom conversations and exchanged many emails, as Jim has worked from his home in BC and Judi has worked from her studio in Eastern Ontario. I am indebted to both of these artists and collaborators for their patience, trust, and enthusiasm. So thank you both very much. This exhibition would not have been possible without the generosity of a number of lenders. Many of the works by Sue Clark, hanging today in the Norah, Rosamond, Hughes Gallery at the MVTM, are on loan from members of Sue's very kind, supportive family. And I would particularly like to thank Carol Stonebridge, Sue's sister, as well as Jim, for going above and beyond to facilitate these loans, as well as cross-country shipping, pickups, and deliveries. Thank yous also go out to two private collectors of Judi's who have loaned works from their homes for this occasion. If you haven't already seen the show, and I know that I'm going to sound biased in saying this, you really should. Visitors who've shared their feedback have asked questions like, how long have the artists been working together? Or how long have the artists known each other? It's remarkable to believe, once you've seen the works together, that Sue and Judi had never met prior to this project. Their work and processes, though distinct from each other in many ways, are so very complementary. I can only imagine how much they would have had to discuss and exchange together, and how much fun we all would have had working together on the show. Both Sue and Judi share an interest in translating their visions of the places they call home, particularly the landscape, through thread and stitch within their works. Miller, working on her sewing machine using free motion embroidery, takes inspiration from her photographs, fleeting, moving moments glimpsed in the wider world, caught in time and carefully preserved for the enjoyment of others. Clark worked entirely by hand to create what she referred to as living texture, layering fabrics with intricate stitches as unique brushstrokes to convey both the subtlety and complexity of nature, as well as her deep connection and reverence to it. Common Threads, Contrasting Claws presents a wide array of works by Miller and Clark that highlight their mastery of machine embroidery and hand stitch, respectively. The show has been many years in the making, and on behalf of everyone, we're thrilled to share it with you today. Included for the first time in this show are works that Clark was making at the time of her passing, alongside works created by Miller expressly for this exhibition, and we'll show you all of those later in the presentation. My hope is that this collection also offers insight into the everyday beauties immortalized by their creators, moments that remind us to pause and appreciate both the grandiosity of the natural world around us and the minute details that comprise it. Today, we're happy to share with you zoomed in looks, if you will, at 6 of the works in the show, sharing some of the behind the scenes and outside the frame story about each one with you. Firstly, however, I want to introduce you to the fine folks who are joining me today in conversation and with whom I have had the privilege of working over these many months. Judi Miller, whose works in this image are the two in the center of this arrangement, is a textile artist who specializes in free motion embroidery. Her work is influenced by the detailed natural elements of landscapes, particularly those surrounding the Ottawa area. The shape, form, and movement of the continually changing landscape provide inspiration to her, but photographs are where her creative process begins. Her embroidery technique lends itself to capturing light, color, and movement that help to create a strong sense of memory and place. Using a variety of threads, color, and weights, she creates pieces with finely stitched details on a painted fabric base and she uses her sewing machine no differently from a paintbrush or a pencil. As a Vancouver Island artist, Sue Clark, whose works in this image are the two on either side of this arrangement, the mountains, drew upon the bounty of the natural world for inspiration, particularly trees, which she loved to bring to life through textiles. Rooted in the practices acquired in her fine arts education at the Ontario College of Art, she developed a self-taught technique using fabric and thread to create paintings. Drawn to fiber for its rich history as a storytelling medium, she grew a strong connection to textiles over time for the deep range of dynamic properties embedded within their fibers. Combining a wide range of textiles with the intricacy of hand stitching, Sue produced artworks that are layered with a subtle, living texture, imparting a deep feeling and connection to the subject matter. The fabric pieces she cut and stitched carry a signature as distinctive as a painter's brushstroke. Speaking about Sue's work today is Jim Baker, who's with us, an accomplished painter in his own right, whose own works betray inspirations taken from the places on and across the land where he and his partner Sue would walk and visit. I've noticed that while Jim is quiet when it comes to talking about himself and his work, he is a tireless and proud champion of Sue and her career, having been an observer and appreciator of her working process for many years in the studio she kept in home, as well as the mobile studio she maintained on the road, because her stitching would often accompany the pair on their road trips and excursions, both close to home and farther afield. In collaboration with Jim and Judy, I've prepared a talk, more of a conversation really, to share with you a few stories embedded within the stitches of select works in the Common Threads exhibition. That is, things you may not know about the works simply by looking at them. And the inspiration for this, I have to say, came from a conversation we had, Jim and I, at the opening. We're going to move into sharing these with you, alternating between works of Judy's and of Sue's. As we go along, please feel free to use the chat box to share any questions that you have, and we'll save time for a Q&A period near the end of our time together today. I would like to give one last shout out to Lila Hack at the MVTM, who is hosting the tech and holding our Zoom room down today behind the scenes. So thanks, Lila. All right, so as mentioned, the inspiration for today's talk stems from conversations that occurred on opening day of the Common Threads Contrasting Claws exhibition. This was the first time that we'd all had the opportunity to be together in the same space and appreciating the works. As we talked, several backstories about many of the works that we've shown you in photos today surfaced, and it occurred that I probably wouldn't be the only one who'd be really curious to hear more about these. I've asked Judy and Jim to each choose 3 works to discuss today. It wasn't a complete surprise to find that these selections could be shared based on common themes. The first pairing, Mount Robson 2 by Sue Clark and Coverlet by Judi Miller, they're linked by their shared emergence from treasures that were found while the artists were out doing their field research, walking and hiking amidst the landscapes that inspired them. I'm going to let Jim speak first to these works, and then we'll turn it over to Judy for her observations about Coverlet. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, the Mount Robson piece, that contains a lot of memories of a backpack trip that Sue and I had to Mount Robson, and it was ultimately our last backpack trip. So it's a very special one. And we almost weren't able to go because it was right at the beginning of COVID, and everyone was just dying to get out of the house, and all the reservations for the campsites were filling up way too fast. But our son was able to find some people that canceled out. And had reservations, and so we were ultimately able to suddenly go, and we just jumped at the opportunity to go, and it was just an amazing trip. And what's special about the Mount Robson piece that Sue did was that as we were hiking around on the different flanks of Mount Robson in the meadows and that, we would see the mountain goats out there, and they would be over here, over there, and that. And ultimately, they became a vital part of the landscape. That wherever you looked, oh, the mountain goats might be there, and on little shrubberies by the trail, there was little bits of little tufts of mountain goat fur, and Sue grabbed one of them, and ultimately, when she did her piece, the little mountain goats in there, they're little tiny dots in the picture that you probably can't see on your cell phone, but um, those are actually, she sewed the fur onto the piece to just incorporate how special it was to be there, to have a direct link of there's the mountain goats and there's their actual fur type of thing. And yeah, it was pretty special. I really enjoy that piece a lot. It's a lot of fun, and that, yeah,
Thanks,
that's it.
thanks, Jim. Yeah, this is the piece, Mount Robson, that inspired the whole talk. And while we're looking at it, if you check out the detail next to the overview, you'll see the little mountain goat fur mountain goats tucked in there. And you also can gain an appreciation for the kind of living painting technique, living texture technique um, that Sue had developed and was very proud of. Alrighty, we'll move to coverlet. Ooh. And I will turn it over to Judy to tell us about this one.
Thanks, Miranda. I really like that Sue incorporated those little goat tufties. That's lovely. I think I'll have to try. I pick up a lot of things on my little walks. I'll have to try and incorporate some of those little treasures in my pieces also. So this piece is part of a series that I call my very imaginative, my fungus series. I don't know where you live or where the audience may live, but the South March Highlands is close to me, and it's just been a wealth of fabulous fungus the last few years. Honestly, every time I go, it's like I spot something new. These woods are remarkably the same and different every time I go, and really lovely to have such a gem at my front door practically. So coverlet is just one of these amazing growths of moss and decay and fungus and twigs that you can't just help but to want to capture. And it's a constant surprise to see these little beauties, these little gems in the woods. Sadly, these woods are being encroached upon by builders, but that's what we have to do. People have to live somewhere. But I can only hope that, and I have seen some of these new homeowners now discovering, they're not my woods, but what I like to think are my little South March Highlands gem. And I hope that they can incorporate some of these. Just a little snapshot of one of the wonderful little things I see in along the trails.
Thanks so much, Judy. You cut in and out a little bit. You cut in and out a little bit while you were sharing, but then your voice caught up. So I think we managed to catch everything. In terms of thinking about these two works, reflecting on this selection a little bit, I've noticed that speaking with both of you, Jim and Judy, over the last few months, and in reading Sue's work about her practice, walking and exploring and hiking are all integral parts of the works themselves, but also the working and creative processes. That it's actually a form of visual research to be seeking out and finding inspiration. Could you both please speak to this a little bit and maybe comment on the role that photography plays as part of this process, as far as recording and collecting these sources of inspiration that you find? Maybe, well, you two can decide who goes first.
Judy, I'll follow you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit. I guess am I just talking about my photo craziness?
Hmm. Tell us a little bit about how walking is part of your creative practice, and how photography plays into that as a form of collecting these inspirations.
Well, it's probably partly, first of all, it's very easy these days to take pictures. So that's wonderful. It stops me picking things up, which I love to do, but shouldn't. But I just think there's just so much beauty in the trails that I walk, and really everywhere you can find it without seeking with too much difficulty. So I do take an awful lot of pictures, perhaps not as many as I used to, because I think now I've had a little bit of practice, and not that I know what I'm looking for, but I know I can take a photo of something I know I can create with the feeling that I have when I see it. That makes any sense? That it's just like a little gem, a little gem in a lot of pictures and cull through them and find things. So now fewer pictures, but perhaps I know what my inspiration and my and whether or not it's something I can create with the feeling that I want to. So that's my photo journey. Yeah, I think I have something like 14,000 photos on my phone. I perhaps should go through them a little bit, but yeah, I just like that snapshot, and I really love to share with people that aren't always able to walk the trails. So it's just a way of sharing also my own journey and the things that give me a thrill. Yeah.
Thanks, Judy. And over to you.
No, you're welcome.
Jim, what are your thoughts and reflections on Sue's walking practice and creative practices intersecting?
Well, Sue and I have been both doing art forever, and when we were much younger, we would go on a walk and we would actually bring sketchbooks and stop and do a little sketch when we saw something of interest. And then as technology improved and digital pictures were readily available, and that definitely we both would start taking pictures as notes. But Sue had her studio in the house, and so do I. And but both of us would take those pictures and then sit down and do a sketch again. And for me, I can't say for Sue, but for me, the camera was just a step of moving the three-dimensional world into the flat plane of the 2 dimensions. And so, but it needed, I would need guidance to put things in the right place so that the painting can exist all by itself. And I believe that Sue was much on the same line, because she would definitely sit down and do the sketch, and then transfer the sketch onto her canvas and begin doing her sewing and things like that. And walking, it's the different gaits that we move at. When we walk, we're always looking to make sure we don't trip, but it's so easy to stop and take in something that caught your eye. If I'm running, I'm much more focused on not tripping, and so the things that catch my eye have to be pretty spectacular for me to stop. And Sue and I also like to mountain bike, but it was and there was even further that we would be very focused on what is ahead of us so that we didn't fall off our bikes. But we would go to a destination and then get off of our bikes, have coffee, maybe a picnic, and really absorb some spectacular view at that point. But walking is so easy. You just open up the door and you start doing it. And so that was what we did most of the time.
Thanks so much, Jim. I appreciate that perspective. It definitely makes me want to go out and take a closer look at things and really pay attention to surroundings. And I appreciate too the idea of the camera as both a recording device to catch that moment in time, but also in its own way as a device for viewing. Kind of a step in the direction of rendering the three-dimensional world into a two-dimensional situation that can be better translated into a painting. Okay, it strikes me that the second pairing, Redwood Ghost, which you see here by Sue Clark, and Marshes by Judi Miller, which you will see shortly, share a sense of continuity and of line, the type that connects across generations and even transcends species, but also those long lines of sight that catch and compel the eye, both of which can spark awe, inspiration, and study. Jim, I'm going to turn it to you to tell us about Redwood Ghost, please.
Okay, when you asked for 3 pieces, I thought of to just give a broad spectrum of how Sue would think through her art process, her creative process. And with Redwood Ghost, she and we love trees, and especially old growth forest. And so the redwood forest was sort of a mecca for us, that we needed to do the pilgrimage there one day. And finally, we did load up the car and headed down the west coast of Washington State and Oregon, and arrived at the redwood forest. And along the way and beforehand, Sue was reading about the redwood forests and just how the ecosystem was working, and different stories in history and everything, and that. And one of the things that really stuck out for her was that, like, there's several ways that the redwoods can procreate, but one of them is a mother-daughter, that a mother tree will all of a sudden have a sprout that is the daughter tree, and the daughter tree will be able to use the root system of the mother tree and get nourishment and support and stability from the mother tree immediately. And then as the two of them grow, they share the root system. And Sue saw that this one clump that was mother-daughter situation, but she also saw that there was the grandmother tree there, and it was had died, like, very long time ago, and just the bare ghost was left. But what she was amazed about was that the grandmother's roots were supporting the daughter tree and the granddaughter tree. The granddaughter tree was able to use the root system left over from the grandmother tree. And I think that that's really cool. And that was part of what that's the happy part of the Redwood Ghost.
It's an incredibly affecting and attractive piece of Sue's. I remember it coming out of the box and just being totally taken by the detail, the surface saturation, even the nuance of the way that the material is overlaid. I had no idea about that additional side of the story until you wrote about it, Jim, and I love it even more knowing that. Before we move to take a look at Judy's work, Marcia's, I want to point out to everybody who's looking too that there are three-dimensional elements in this particular piece as well. Sue worked with bringing in those three-dimensional aspects and those more sculptural aspects to several of her works. And it looks subtle in these images, but when you see the work in person, which is just one more reason why you should go and check out the exhibition, it's a most impressive effect. Okay, so this is Marcia's by Judi Miller, who has returned. Can you tell us a thing or two about this piece, please?
Actually, before I mention this piece, so many people that have seen the exhibit mentioned Redwood Ghost by Sue, that they just thought it was amazing, that like just her talent is unbelievable, and they really, really enjoyed that piece and that three-dimensionality of it. So anyway, so thank you for sharing that, Jim and Sue. So this piece was from a photograph that a friend of mine had taken. It's a marsh near her on the Ottawa River, near her house. So the dimension for me was really different. It's, what is it now? 34 by 12, something like that, long and skinny. It's very unusual. And I think the photograph just struck me that it's all kind of familiar, that gliding, in a canoe gliding along, that like quiet. The more you look at the reeds, the more you see. And it was nice to change up what I usually comfortable in my standard size that I liked in a smaller dimension. So this was a real challenge. I really appreciated the elegance and the simplicity of the original photograph. And I wanted to convey that quiet feeling of gliding along the water. The embroidery was slow and steady. I would say like myself, but that's really boring. But anyway, slow and steady. It had a rhythm unto itself when I was sewing it, which was very enjoyable. But it literally was, every stem, every reed, to try and collect that, capture that reflection. And I really wanted the viewer to look carefully at the piece. And it was a bit of a breakthrough piece for me, because I really I was very pleased with the way it came out. And I was lucky enough to see people look at it the way I wanted them to look at it. So that was quite something. So very enjoyable. I don't want to say tedious, but that word does come to mind, in that, those reeds, but I was very pleased with the effect, and I hope people see in it that serenity, that lovely feeling, you know, gliding. Anyway, that was a bit of a breakthrough piece for me, and a really enjoyable dimension.
Thanks, Judy. This is another one that came out of its crate and was definitely a beautiful surprise. To see it or to hold it in your hands, the piece is so long, the perspective of the rushes just goes on and on and on and on and on, which is great because you can't get enough of a good thing. And I feel like the stitching in this is really something that you have to see in person. Have included a few little details here just to
Thank you. Yeah.
express the nuance of the way that the layers of stitching do complement and overlay each other and really create this sense of depth. To see it from a distance, it's quite a subtle piece. The palette is relatively subdued compared to some of Judy's other work.
Mhm.
You go up close and it's a real marvel. I notice looking at these works that and other works in the show, Sue and Judy also share a keen eye for texture, form, and shape, but their ways of rendering their observations of the world around them differ as the materials and approaches they use do. This shows up in works like Redwood Ghost, where a close-up look at the bark. I'll actually just go back to it for a moment so that you can appreciate what I'm saying. A close-up look at the bark and surface of the tree is rendered through the play of light and shadow, and a dimensional buildup of material on the surface of the ground, which creates quite a dramatic effect. Where Judy's marshes, where the focus on the rushes is created through defined but softer modeling, offer subtler surfaces built up by layers of flat laid stitch that create quite an impressively dense ground. Jim and Judy, I wondered if you could please speak about the materials used in Sue's work and in Judy's work to create and construct them, and how their employment and overlay impacts the creation of palettes and sensibilities that are very distinctively the artist's own. Also, where do the materials which comprise the palette come from, and how are they chosen? That's a multi-part question, so you can start anywhere in there and address any or all parts.
Okay, I'll start on this one. Sue and I have never been to the thrift stores so often in my life as Sue would regularly go to the thrift stores and go to where there was just a section where people brought in pieces of cloth, and she would go and sort through and find different colors and textures. And then Sue was a very organized person as well, and so when she got home, she had bins, and she would sort out her pieces of cloth into different colors and not. And so as she was putting the piece together, she would work out the colors, and then she would have just an array of like, you know, corduroy, or like, I don't know very many names of fabric, fuzzy stuff or smooth stuff, slippery stuff, shiny stuff, and start layering those pieces down. And then she'd get her scissors out and start cutting, like, you know, start cutting it out to fit. And so, like, in a painting kind of way, she would put down the initial colors as the background, and then uh, as things started to fit together, she would put more and more detail, more textures, more color, like, fine tune the colors until it finally emerged.
Thanks, Jim. I wish that I could have seen her work. I'm sure that watching her do that in the studio, surrounded by all of these materials, was really a sight to behold. And almost more than that, I wish I could have gone thrift shopping with her. Over to you, Judy.
I like the finally emerged. Yes. So I guess I'm fairly traditional in my choice of materials. Maybe not traditional, but comfort. So I use cotton base and cotton thread. Just purely that's the ease of which I can sew on and sew with those things. So I do quite a bit of travel collecting. I'm happy to, wherever I happen to be or go, I will, look for the fabric stores, and it's always interesting to do that in another country, especially when you're not making a garment and people are kind of a bit confused that I'm working on a painting, is what I would say. I'm working on a painting, and they're like, well, what are you doing here? But I have bins too, Jim, bins full of collected fabric. People now are giving me fabric, which is wonderful. And my threads I almost exclusively use cotton. And I like, and maybe because I'd like them to sponsor me and have me fly over to Italy for it, as a thread called Orafil. We're lucky enough to have a distributor here in Stittsville nearby me. So cotton on cotton are my materials, and layers and layers and layers. That's and just that these days, that between the fabrics and the threads, the palette is right there for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So nice to hear both of you talk about the materials behind the work, and yeah, it's really a special thing to be able to chat with artists about what they use and how it comes together.
Yeah.
So thanks for your generosity with that question. Okay, moving along to this very fancy and exciting piece. This is the Richmond Project by Sue Clark, and it's one half of the final pairing we're going to talk about today, which also includes Judy's window screens. All of these pieces share a sense of shifted perspective, I think, of looking down at the world instead of out, of letting light pass through instead of expressing it through opaque layers, and most definitely of integrating new materials and process to bring creative visions into being. Jim, would you mind telling us a bit about this I'm going to say it's quite a different piece in the grand scheme of the exhibition than some of the more organic pieces, but it's totally fascinating, and I'm really glad that you chose it. Will you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. Back years ago, our son Doug got a job in Richmond in the high-tech industry, and Richmond has been, which is a suburb of Vancouver, it has been growing, but growing around high-tech industries and things. And after a while, we were visiting Doug, and he asked if we'd ever seen an aerial shot of Richmond and how it actually looks like a circuit board. And we said no, and he showed us, and Sue was just blown away that, oh, this is just amazing, that that the industry, like it used to be farmland, and the industry that they've chosen to go with is high tech, and they're building, they're laying out the the city as a circuit board as well. And so she took that idea, and then she, like, did just like with her textured cloth, she went, oh well, I'll put little pieces of electronics into it as well, to be the little towers and miscellaneous things that are in the landscape. And so she did that, and it was like Sue did, like, very, like, a lot of like you say, organic things, of trees and scenes and things like that. But she also loved the conceptual, that of thinking, having a really well developed idea, and then presenting a piece. And so this is that's why I chose to talk about this one, because this is a little bit of showing her conceptual ideas that come in behind. And then there was a art show in Richmond, and that piece got the People's Choice Award as well, and so that was very cool.
Thanks so much, Jim. Even being in the exhibition while people were checking it out, hearing conversations and expressions of amazement and thrill at looking when folks were looking at the Richmond project piece was pretty special. I want to point out too, Jim had mentioned all sorts of different fabrics that wound up in Sue's stash. If you look very closely here, you'll see a few different kinds of corduroy. There's a little bit of houndstooth pattern. Looks like there are some shiny bits. I don't see any fuzzy bits, but there's definitely a lot of diversity as far as both the textile components and the electrical components. Judy, I have 3 different photos to share of your window screen pieces. And so as you're telling us a little bit about these, I'm going to flip the images, but if you want me to go backwards or forwards, just let me know.
Okay, we'll do. I'm first going to say that my husband was very impressed that there was a golf course in Richmond that he saw in Sue's piece. Okay, so the friezes. So I been lucky enough, privileged enough to visit the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum many times. And I'm always struck by those beautiful windows, and the windows, the depth of the windows. And I asked Miranda, would it be okay if I created something for the windows that I'm not sure what I'm going to call them. Are they friezes? Is that the right word? Panels. I was calling them panels.
So apparently the word frieze comes from embroidery, but it refers to small bands as opposed to large surfaces. So
Yeah.
I've adopted the word screens, but you call them whatever you like because you're the person who made them.
Okay. I will call them, why did I decide to do this? So it was a real pleasure. I remember saying, oh, do you mind if can I do something? Can I create something new? So I had this idea in my head for a long, long time to do something on water-soluble fabric. So it was meant to be, and it was a lot of fun and a real challenge to do these very large pieces for me. As you know, most of my work's quite small. So each piece was created using water-soluble embroidery stabilizer, free motion machinery on that, and then to wash away the background to leave these kind of delicate creations. So this was new to me. It's very exciting. I think I was winging it a bit, but I certainly learned a lot along the way. I was very pleased with the way they turned out, and I really loved them hanging in the windows. I did consider putting a panel behind it, I was hoping that the light from within the museum would shine on the colored panel behind, but there was way too much going on, and Miranda and her crew were right in to say that they should just be left alone the way they are. I think they look wonderful. And the care has to be taken to make sure that the embroidery threads do not dangle, and that they all connect in some way to give the piece some structure. So that was an awful lot of fun, and a real challenge, and I'm pleased, like I say, with the way it turned out. And geez, those windows are just beautiful. I think they have an awful lot to say, so I hope my pieces have add to the conversation. But sometimes we take these the first piece on there is called Tangle, and I think everybody's done that when you look up on whether it's a wall or under a tree, or all that tangle of fine branches as they come down. The second piece was Poppies, just that lovely red reflecting in the sunshine and swaying in the breeze, which you will get even inside. I'm not sure where the breeze is coming from inside the museum sometimes, but there's always a little breeze there. The next piece is a marsh, just that familiar standing on the riverbank, looking for life in the water. And the last piece is sunflowers, which is such a beautiful flower, and just imagine the heat of the day. And I really like the way the delicacy of well, now I can't say freezes because that sounds weird. The panels.
Just go ahead.
The freezes. Those deep sills, I feel like they're meant to be. So that was a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for me to create something new, something that I had been thinking about for a long time, and something very distinct for the museum. I mean, I'd seen those windows so many times, so I'm glad I was able to do that. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thanks for running with it. I think I can speak for Michael in saying that we were both super excited by the thought of this being a possibility and coming to life as part of this project. But to see them going into the museum and actually catching a glimpse of them and spending time with them was thrilling. Having the opportunity to iron them with you was a cool behind the scenes moment.
Don't tell anybody I'm good at ironing.
Okay, that doesn't leave this Zoom call, anybody. And then finally seeing them installed in the windows was just a very satisfying moment.
Yes.
So thanks, Judi. And thanks to Jim. I'd also like to ask both of you to speak more to the perspectives that are conveyed in the work generally. So not just the views of the world that are translated through the creation of a tree portrait or a landscape view, but to the motivating concepts behind their creation. For instance, Jim, I know that Sue was a dedicated champion of natural places, particularly of the rainforests. And Judi, I was impressed very early in our conversations about your views that people would just pay more attention to the beauty around them. Both Sue and Judi seem to use art as a vehicle to share and inform the perspectives of the folks who look at the art. And I would just love to hear more about what these underpinning ideas are.
Well, I barely know where to start. I think that, like Sue, as an artist, realized that all aspects of her life referred to her as an artist. And so her creativity was always there. Her perspective was always there. Her way of thinking, her way of analyzing was always there. And so when she actually did artwork, she didn't confine herself to just like, just doing the trees or that, even though that was very much what many of her pieces were, are landscapes. But that's just, I think that's also just because we open up the back door and we're in the forest, and so those were very intimate trees for her. Like, she even named some of them. But she also liked, like I said, like she liked to work out a concept and to really do the deep thinking and thoroughness of it. And I think that you said that you're going to talk about clouds. And to me, that was Sue's ultimate masterpiece, that she had really just gone right to the very ends of thinking a concept through, and that unfortunately I will never see what the resolve is, but I I do know that that was wow. Like, I'm just amazed at the thinking, the concept behind it. And so yeah, and so like, it was just yeah, Sue was Sue. And yeah, she did like, nothing was independent. Everything was about, like, uh, everything was about everything. Yeah, everything connected.
I have so appreciated getting to know Sue through our conversations about her, and I just want to thank you again for your generosity through this process and for sharing that response to my question. Thanks so much, Jim. Over to you, Judy. Judy, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, you kind of cut out there for a second.
Apologies.
Okay,
I just said over to you, and we'd
over to me.
love to hear more about the perspectives that are conveyed through your works.
I think what I would like to convey through my work is like, I would like people to, I don't want to be so, I sounds conceited, to see what I see, but that there's beauty in nature, just boundless. And if we could just sometimes slow down and take a moment, that's what I try to do, just that snippet of the ordinary around you that is actually quite extraordinary, and the way that we should think about our natural world, and really to share that awe, where you're about to step in the woods and that there's like a beautiful vista like right there. So that's what I'd like to share with the viewer. And yeah, I think just that snippet. Be mindful for what you see, and to breathe it in, take it in. Yeah.
And enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're just about at the end of our talking pieces, and then we'll turn it over to the audience for a little Q&A period. I know that there have been some really great questions popping up in the chat box that we look forward to addressing. I think maybe a few answers have already been connected to by the artists. Right now, I'm just wondering, now that we've had our little story tour of the exhibition, our mini tour, if there's anything that Jim or Judy would like to say about what your experience of working on this exhibition has been like, especially the impressions that your time in the gallery in the midst of all of these works was like, what that's left you with, and anything else that you'd like to share with us or let us know now that we've had the chance to do a little bit of revisitation of the show after a bit of a pause and a break from the gallery.
Okay. It was when I first walked into the gallery and saw all of Sue's works in the same place again. It was pretty overwhelming, and yeah, um, it took me. It was a big wave. It was a big wave, absolutely, and. But as I acclimatized and started wandering through the gallery and taking in each piece by itself and enjoying it and absorbing myself in it, and I really like yeah I my emotions settled a little bit. And so it took me a little bit before I even noticed Judy's work there. Sorry, Judy, but at that point, after I had calmed down and I began to see Judy's work and really appreciated her work, and also uh, what you had done, Miranda, of pairing everything and the synergy that I was getting out of Sue's work and Judy's work all together in each panel was just spectacular. It was really, really wonderful. And then like a big part of me going out to Ontario was for family. And after seeing the work, I noticed, oh, there's a whole lot of people here, and they're all family. And it was very, I don't know, it was very special to have such a to see so much family in the gallery, all with Sue's work, and knowing that they had each contributed by loaning a piece of their work, of Sue's work to show and that. And I just felt I don't know, love and warmth that filled up the gallery with family and with all the pieces of art and that. And I don't know. I don't really know how to say this last part, but I felt for uh, that Sue's spirit was at peace, or my feelings for Sue were at peace. That her story had finally been told and completed and presented in a very good way, kind of thing. Yeah, that's how I felt about the show. I was pretty amazed. I still am amazed. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jim. It was incredible and like beyond description how moving that day was, the opening day, and how much it meant to be able to spend time in the gallery with you and with your family. So thanks again for all of that, and to family who are joining in and listening, thank you so much. Over to you, Judy.
Well, Miranda, and Jim, I think I have to say, it was a real honor for me to be alongside Sue. The opening day was lovely, and your careful curation was much appreciated, Miranda. You were wonderful to work with. So I have to say, I don't know if you heard this, Jim, but so many people asked me how long Sue and I had known each other. And I'm sad to say I didn't have the pleasure, but I feel like I came to know a feeling for her, looking at her beautiful, intricate hand work, totally in awe, and very honored to have been part of this lovely show with her. Yeah, really feel honored to have been in this, beautiful space with Sue. But people were surprised that we didn't know each other. I think they thought we had colluded and got together and put this together, which I'm honored that people would have thought that. So thank you for your careful curation. Yeah, I think that's. I feel honored. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks for sharing those reflections, and just a really special project to be part of, like a true honor.
Absolutely.
I want to just nudge the audience into sharing your questions. We're going to jump into the Q&A in just a moment, but I would like to share with you a couple of reflections as well before we do that. When I was first getting to know the artists and their works, I noticed a variety of common threads straight away, looking at the works, the photos of them, and chatting with Jim and Judy. Things like their shared employment of embroidery, but taking different approaches to that, hand versus machine, drawing inspirations from nature, particularly through immersive and very close experiences within it. A sense of urgency around expressing the beauty of the natural world, and also rising to the challenge of translating that beauty through textile and thread. Most impressive. And also their reference to working this way as being informed by or akin to painting or to drawing, the attention to surface saturation with stitch, and to modeling every tiny little detail, both with materials and with light and shadow, and the depth that both of them achieve in their work. But I also noticed contrasts, like the slight difference in scale, which you will have noticed through the images that we shared of the show. Their play with perspective, whether they're really zoomed in looks at the fourth floor or really zoomed out looks at the bigger picture. And their innovation in using the vocabulary of stitch and the layering of fabric to convey natural details, like looking closely, for example, at this work of Sue's that we can see in this particular image, which I believe is Cortez Duo, and I think is one of a work that meant a lot to Sue. Also, the using stitch to fill and define the minutiae of detail that they noticed out in nature, but also conveying this sort of gestural sense, like drawing, definitely communicating the things that their eyes gravitate towards when they are out there looking. The artist's shared dedication to the work was evident even from only seeing images of the works, which certainly never do justice to original art, particularly textile-based works that are imbued with such a strong sense of tactility. It made selecting the curatorial list very satisfying and exciting, but being present in the gallery alongside my colleague, Maybe McInnes, who works at the MVTM and is brilliant, unboxing the works together was an experience of delight that we shared that is really quite difficult to describe. Seeing and feeling firsthand the synergy between the works of these two artists, it was evident that this show would be special and that the artists were very well matched serendipitously through winning this award. It's been really gratifying to receive messages of support and excitement from visitors who've been to the show, even those who've come in and taken the time to express to my colleagues at the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum how much they've enjoyed it, or folks who have written in. Definitely definitely wish that Sue was here to be able to enjoy this with us. But the exhibition really and truly is a celebration of Sue and of Judi, their work and their innovation in textile. So in closing, I just want to congratulate and recognize both of the artists on their accomplishments and success and innovation. And again, want to express sincere and heartfelt thanks to Jim for being along through this process all the way and being so generous and supportive in making the exhibition happen. Also want to acknowledge the presence in the exhibition of both the new works created for the occasion by Judi. Thanks again for showing us your beautiful friezes / screens / however you're going to print here on out. And for your willingness to work in literally new ways and new dimensions. And also a special presentation of some of Sue's works in progress. So we talked about this piece, which is called Cloud. But I don't think that I have shown you the mushrooms yet, which are a couple of smaller works, but so rich, both in the variety of textile that's represented in here and also the amazing amount of stitching and nuance that's here too. So thanks, Jim, for being open and willing to let us not only ship these very delicate works in process across the country, but also show them in the exhibition to give some insight into Sue's process. Okay, it is time for questions and comments from the audience, and we are happy to take them. Michael, do you have a read on what some of the questions are that have surfaced so far?
So there is one question I think's been answered, but I want to just make sure. To Judi, by what process do you select the places you choose to depict in your work? Are they chosen by chance, or do you feel a connection that calls to you somehow?
Can I just answer yes? Well, I guess we talked about this photography thing. So wherever I go, many, many pictures are taken. Yeah, I think I have a, I don't want to say I know what I'm looking for, but I do like that up close look at things. And just, it's usually happenstance. I just take a lot of pictures. I do a lot of walking. I like that. I like to zoom in and look closely, and also like to challenge my my abilities. So I think there was a time perhaps when I would pick something I knew I could do. Now I choose my images because I want to push myself. So yeah. Thank you.
So I have another question that has come in. What drew Judi and Sue to fiber as a medium, as opposed to a more traditional media?
Can I answer that first?
Go ahead.
I get this question all the time. Like, why would you sew? Why would you embroider when you could paint? Well, for me, it would be, well, why would I paint when I can embroider? So I've always, exactly. So I've always sewn. I was that little girl that was always, you know, picking up mom's whatever and sewing, and needed a little bag for my goodies. And so it just seemed natural. I have painted but for me, it's the embroidery that ticks all the boxes for me. Yeah, just the way it is.
Thank you, Sue. Jim.
Well, Sue did paint, but she and her sisters went to and had a trip to Rome, and one of the side trips was to go to the Vatican. And so with the hustle and bustle of going through the Vatican, they got taken through a room or a chamber, like, you know, a great big space. And there was all of these embroideries. And Sue was just absolutely taken that didn't like that she went, hey, I can do this, and that she would modernize it, that she would do her vision with just like the embroideries. And I don't know if I'm on the screen or not, but so she came back and did that one there. And that was the first one that she did. And there must be about 20 miles of thread in that one because she hadn't, she was developing how she was going to do it, that there wasn't so much pieces of cloth in this one. There was a whole lot of thread. And yeah, it was a trip to the Vatican, believe it or not. Yeah.
Maybe we should ask the Vatican if they'd like to take some of her pieces.
Yeah.
It makes me think too that like her attitude about, oh, I'm gonna try that. I feel like Judi, you have a very similar attitude when it comes to trying new things and challenging yourself. And I can only imagine what those conversations between you uh, might have looked like.
It would have been good.
I have another great question that's come in for you, Jim. It's mentioned that you, as an artist yourself, did you and Sue share the same inspiration? Did your work ever play off one another?
I would have to say yes, but at the same time, I'd have to say that we tried to also let each other's creative process work as well. That so when we were out, we would be inspired or by some spot, some scene, and both of us might have even I might have painted it and Sue might have sewn it, but we wouldn't talk about what we were working on until after it was done because we didn't want to I've got a bad word, contaminate. Like we wanted our own thought process to go through without the influence of the other. But afterwards, sure, we would talk about it totally and appreciate each other's art. Yes.
Judi, would you consider doing more larger pieces like the window screens, or do you still prefer the smaller works?
I could say yes. I would definitely consider doing the large pieces, more large pieces now that I've got a handle on how to do those. But I do like the smaller dimensions. Again, it comes back to that like moment in time. I find it's easier to convey that in a small piece, but I'm definitely interested in doing some bigger panels or friezes. Yeah.
So, and we'll keep an eye out for more questions, comments. And thank you for bringing that in the chat, Miranda. Definitely Miranda put in links for each artist's website. So do check out their websites. I think it's very, very important to see what they have noted, and what Jim and Judi are currently working on. I'm sure there's some more exciting things happening for the two of them. So one thing I'd like to start off is actually thanking the anonymous donor who back in 2019 approached me of doing an award for textile artists in Canada. So I just want to thank the anonymous donor. I'm hoping they're watching or listening. Just thank you so much for that. That's what brought this wonderful collaboration together and to showcase these two phenomenal artists together. I found this so empowering. It was so great to work with Miranda. You're a true inspiration, and I love how you pulled this exhibition together, and the great collaboration with pulling Jim and his family together, but also pulling Judi into this and inspiring Judi to go outside of her comfort zone of small works. So I really, and it's exciting to see Judi. It's exciting to see your work grow, and been following and work and seeing your work for years. So that's very exciting.
Thank you.
And what an honor and pleasure, and humbling to honor Sue and to showcase her and to memorialize, and honor her and celebrate her life through the work that she's created over the years. Thank you for opening that up for us, Jim. It's been a true honor and pleasure for us, the museum, et cetera, to be a part of that. I want to also again thank Miranda for her leadership on this and for pulling this extraordinary exhibition together. The feedback has been outstanding, and people potentially even looking at maybe showcasing this exhibition in other places. We'll see, fingers crossed, but there's been some really good dialogue back and forth. I want to thank Lila for her continued dedication and hard work at the museum. Thank you so much, Lila. You're a true gem. And thank you to Maybe McInnes again, just for installing this incredible exhibition and working with Miranda. And just, you do extraordinary work in putting together and being able to be creative in how you install and doing it in such a great way, with very little funds to do so. So thank you. Thank you, Maybe. So what a great team. What a great group. I don't know if there's any final questions or comments from anyone, but I just want to thank everyone.
Yeah, just want to reiterate that thanks. And Judi, did you have any details of any of the upcoming shows and sales that you are part of this holiday season that you can share? I think maybe there's a little internet lag.
I'm at a show right this minute in Kanata. Yes, there is, I think. Yes. I'm at a show right now in Kanata. We're on again tomorrow, here at the Malak Center, 2500 Campo Drive. And then my next show, which is a lovely way for me to end the season, I don't do any in December, is at Kleinberg at the Canadian McMichael Collection up in Kleinberg. There's a juried show in the lobby of the museum. It's wonderful if anybody happens to be up that way. And thank you for the opportunity, Miranda. Thank you.
Just wanted to mention too, I know that there is a fundraiser coming later this month for the MVTM, so please watch the museum socials and website for details about that and how to contribute or take part. I mentioned that we've been really grateful to hear feedback about the exhibition, but we'd be equally excited to hear your feedback on the talk today. So if you have something you'd like to share, make sure that you send it to Michael. His email address is down here, curator@mvtm.ca. And there's still time to see the show, so get yourself out to take a peek, bring some friends. Enjoy your visit to the museum. The show closes on December 14th, after which point the pieces will be returned to their respective homes across the country. And I'm sure if there are other opportunities that do come up to share the work in other places, we will be very happy to let you know.